Okay, so step 1, pick the friendly name. Step 2, translate it. Step 3, we need to send the pretty name to the NV32. Nate, how do we talk to different components?
Probably gonna use a cell phone. I think that we're gonna schedule this to connect with your cell phone, call it up, say, hey, NV32H, what are you doing? You having a party right now? I'd like you to change over to source number 2. Appreciate it. Disconnect.
Nope, that's not what we're going to do. We could use a control pin. We could.
We're gonna use named components, aren't we?
We totally are, because that's my favorite way of doing things. So do you remember how to do named components? It takes a code name.
Yeah.
And in the first time when we introduced this, we literally just put the code name in the script. That's okay. But we could do a little better, don't you think? We could make it configurable. How do we make code configurable? We expose a control. Let's go offline. And let's go back to variables. And let's add one more variable. We're going to call it var NV32 code name. It's also a string. Then let's set that hook so that we can talk to the NV32 so we can tell it what to do. All right, come back up to the top of our little part of our script. And let's write the magic line, which is this. Of course, right? We're going to call it dev NV32 because, again, I like to name things dev. And then the thing that I'm talking to, dev NV32, is going to be what? It's going to be component.new, and the code name is what?
That UCI variable.
That UCI variable. The code name is UCI.variables.var NV32 codename.string. Now here's a question, Nate. When do I want to run this piece of code?
Anytime that string changes.
And
also at the top of the script.
In the script, in the main line of the script, which means, guess what? This is a function. Function func set NV32 name is a function with no arguments because I opened it, I have closed it. I am going to do this at startup, func set NV32 name at startup. And when else am I going to do it? Whenever that variable changes. There you go, func set NV32 code name. All right, good. We've now set our hook. So we're ready to do step 3. We actually need to send that control the pretty name. Nate, do you remember how to figure out what the actual control name is? Right here, this guy. Do you remember how we figured that out in the past?
Yeah, well, we went up to Tools and View Component Controls Info.
Indeed, Tools, View Component Controls Info. And when you select the NV32, you get a whole bunch of things. And there are a tremendous list of choices for us to choose from here. And you may remember, one of the little handy tricks is that if you emulate, hover over that control, and see that it is called output one select by name. That's sort of its friendlier description. And so when we now come back over here and look down the list for output one select by name, output one select by name is right here. And I told you it was called pretty name because I've done this before. And here it is. Output one select by name tells you it's expecting a string, and the actual control name is HDMI.out.1.select.pretty.name. That's a lot of dots. Here's what I'm going to do, because that's so many things. I'm going to copy that out so that I don't forget it. And then let's going to come back to our script, and we're going to come down to our event handler. And we're going to do step 3. Let's actually tell dev NV32, because that's the component's name. Then we need to talk to a particular control on it. So we're going to use bracket quotes because it's the literal string name of the control, which I just copied out, hdmi.out.1.select.pretty.name. And what about that thing? Remember, it's looking to receive a dot string. And what string do we want to give it?
Whatever we get out of the Babelfish.
You got it. Table Babelfish bracket CTL dot string. Now when I hit save, and if I turn on my televisions, I can, mine broke. Mine broke on line 178. 178 says, attempts to index a nil value. The field is hdmi.out.1.select.pretty.name. I remember all of those dots. Those are the controls on the NV32. We actually haven't entered the code name at all. We told it to use whatever string was in the UCI variable, and we left the UCI variable empty. This is a very common mistake that you will make. Now, where do we get the code name? A couple different ways to get the code name, but one of the easiest ways to get the code name is hover over your component, and it will actually, remember its little hat, it will tell you its name. Now, you may also recall that if we were offline and I rearranged all of my windows and I pulled out the properties, you'd be able to see the component's name, its label, and its code name, and its permissions. Also, while we're here, one last neat little trick. We also have what's called script programmer mode. If I turn on script programmer mode, you will see that our NV32 has actually changed, and unfortunately that pin is blocking. If you put yourself into script programmer mode, then the label and the code name swap positions. And then the thing that's visible right here, which is being blocked by a flag, it says EMU NV32. But more importantly, it also pulls up this red A. So this is not the scarlet letter. This actually is telling you the permissions set on this component. It has all access. With that, I'm actually going to turn back off script programmer mode because I don't usually use it, partly because I'm really comfortable with just looking at the little overhead thing. Let's actually enter the data that we need. We need this to be EMU NV32. And once we get that in there,
You could have just written MU NV32 in the script, right? But
yeah.
well, again, we want to make sure that you could potentially copy and paste this into another design, into another system whatsoever, and exposed that name to the new system so that you can write the code name in there rather than dig into the Lua code.
Exactly, right? We are on a journey of making things configurable and scalable, and this is us. This is us taking steps in these directions.
We do the Lua so no one else ever has to. That's your goal, right?
Exactly. It's kind of the idea. All right, so now let's give this a shot. So here we go. Let's route Nate's laptop to number 1. Boom. Awesome, right? We routed Nate's laptop, which is HDMI 1. We routed Nate's other laptop, which is HDMI 2. We have routed Nate's wireless, which is HDMI 3. And we have now routed Nate's logo, which is graphic 1. Pop quiz time. I am now working list out number 2, Nate, and it is also changing the first output.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, why is it doing it?
Because you targeted HDMI.out.1.select.pretty.name,
Exactly.
not dot whatever came in.
Exactly. So how do I fix it, mate?
Can you replace the 1 with the I?
Absolutely, and that is exactly the right way to do it.
And you know what you couldn't do in block controller? That. Couldn't do that, and drove us crazy.
Exactly. Okay, so here's actually an easy way. And honestly, this is the development pathway. You make it work for the first one, you figure out that it works, and then you figure out how to make the small correction that makes it scale. So as Nate correctly pointed out, we want to target that number 1, that little number 1 right there. And instead of it being number 1, we want it to be number I. Number I from the I pairs loop. And this is neat. I really like doing it this way because if you highlight the number 1 with VS Code and you put in the double quotes, it puts the double quotes around the 1, which means I'm now in a position to type in ... I ... And now when I hit save, I am able to route to both displays simply by choosing. There you go. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Pretty as a picture. Fantastic.